Hey, this is Khaliq, and this is video 3, number 3 of 4, okay? 3 of 4, so we're almost there. I just wanted to talk to you guys a little bit about what we're going to cover next. Now, let's just recap what we did on the last video. On the previous video, we learned how to control and enhance the most important foundational key players in the song, the things that hold it up and hold it together. The song cannot do it without it, okay? And if you haven't already watched videos 1 and 2, go back and watch them first. You know, things will make more sense for what we're about to get into. Go back and watch them in order, and we're halfway there, okay? So today we're going to refine and expand the process to focus in on the subliminal sonic messaging of the instruments, okay? That's a mouthful, isn't it? Okay, so we're going to get into the subliminal sonic messaging. What that means is the little stuff when an instrument plays, it evokes a feeling in you, you know. So the sound that's chosen, if it's a keyboard and it has a certain sound, if it's a guitar and whether it's has grit and distortion as opposed to being clean, or whether it has effects, or whether it's just rhythmic, you know, these have subliminal sonic messaging elements into them, you know. And we're going to dig into what is that doing and what's being accomplished in identifying the important things in the songs, okay? Now, secret number 2 is it's about the message of the song. Okay, so the message of the song is inherent, you know, especially if you have a song. In most gospel songs, it's going to be lyrics, you know. But also, the message can be something else. Now, I worked on a song, and I'll use this as an example as well, and show you what I did as a difference. But I worked on a song that was instrumental, so the song was called True Worship, but it still had to feel like what the title was saying, what the messaging was saying, true worship. So a song like that, the song felt really good. The instruments were played well, recorded well, and everything was good. But I wanted to add a little bit more. So what I thought about as far as true worship, and when I'm listening to it, I wanted something that made it seem like we were going to God, or being held up by Jesus, or protected and comforted and things like that, you know, the heavens, things like that there. So what I did was on the effects that I had on the main instruments, a couple of the main instruments, mainly guitar and a couple other things, is instead of just putting reverb on and everything and just leaving it, making it sound good, I put the reverb on and then I bent the room. So to simulate like in the heavens or whatever, you know, just in my mind, that's what I thought when I heard them do something. The song came in sounding really nice, but I kept thinking that, okay, when this thing happens, I want it to feel and get that subliminal messaging of feel like you're going to heaven, or feel like you're being protected or cradled or whatever it is. But I wanted that to be imparted with just sound only. So it's amazing that you can do this when you think about it and make that your mission. So when I did it, the person that I was doing this for, a guy named Charles Johnson, an amazing sax player, I was working on it, and he noticed it right away. You know, it gave it a whole nother flavor. And these are the things that help you impart uniqueness into what's going on by tying into the message as well. You know, that was one of the things I think that got me in, like I said, with the Rance Allen group, is because I was able to pull out the messaging in a unique manner, because I really listened and let it talk to me and do some different little stuff, you know. So it's all about the message, and when we talk about that, let's talk about the overview of the process. So we went through some of the other things, and the subliminal sonic messaging, after you've identified what you're going to work on and what their roles are in the music and in the message, and after you basically kind of controlled and put everybody in a good, decent place and they're working together in teams and stuff like that, then the sonic messaging of each individual instrument, that's what helps you do the little things that make certain things just kind of jump out at you and grab you, pull your ear and grab attention, you know. So subliminal sonic messaging of individual instruments. Some instruments actually sound like they're the embodiment of praise and worship and happiness and joy and things like that. Just the sound of it can do that. So if you identify that, then you've got to help it out, you know. So for example, if you got something, a sound that's built in, and it's real energetic and high energy and feels happy and joyful and feels like it's propelling the song and everything, you might not want to reach for an EQ that suddenly starts chopping out a whole lot of the high-end energy element of it and softening it up. Or you might not want to put a compressor in and have the settings where it's smoothing it out too much, you know, because the song, I mean, that instrument already has that sound built into it. So you want to maintain it and actually help it. If you know, I mentioned to you previously that on a couple of things, like I put on Transient Designers so that I can shape the transients to do what I want it to do. Sometimes I shape it to poke through a little bit more, but other times I do it to round things off and just kind of set it in there because I feel it might be a little too aggressive or taking too much attention away from something else that needs to have the little poke. Okay? And then some instruments feel like they're grateful. They sound like they're thoughtful, like they're blessed and everything. There's a pad on this particular song we're working on, and when it gets into that part, you know, that pad just sounds like, you know, it just sounds like it's grateful and blessed and everything, and then it goes away, you know. So you listen for things like that and see how you need to make them come alive in the song because they're already there. Some sounds are driving and energetic and hopeful and full of enthusiasm. So you want to impart that a little bit more in. Sometimes you want to use compression or transient designers or things that can shape the envelope of the sound to give it a little bit more. If it's driving and energetic, you know, you might want to help it a little bit more. You might want to put a little on the front end of it to make it do that. Other times you might want to stretch it out where it goes and drag. You know, you might want to do that, but it keeps it going. Sometimes you want to move things forward or push them back within the groove. You know, there was a keyboard part in this particular song that the keyboard patch, when the chords were played, started late. You know, so it was played on time, but it felt a little late. And every time I heard it, I kept feeling it felt weird to me. And it's always about what's number one, the feeling. So it always felt like, while it sounds good and I hear the part and everything, but it just felt a little weird. So all I did to make it feel better was I moved it ahead in the song, just a hair, just enough to make it, because the way the sound was programmed, it was developing and kind of throwing the groove a bit. So I just moved it ahead a little bit, and once I did that, it was all good and everything's in place. It feels good, you know, okay? And the other thing is to imagine what message is hidden inside the sound of each instrument that you're working on. You know, that it goes back to what we were just talking about, but if you really think it out, it can tell you and lead you to the right processing, you know. You see, I've got all these different things on here, and when we go back to Pro Tools, I'll talk to you about some of the things, what were hidden inside, you know. Now, you know, I'll tell you what's frustrating to me is there's so many little things that really frustrates me that I can't take the time that I want to be able to take with you without making this into a super long video. So I have to do it over a course of a reasonable amount of time and move fast. So if I'm moving fast for you guys, that's the reason for it. I don't want to make it long and drawn out, because quite frankly, a lot of people don't have time for it and don't watch real long videos. I used to do real long ones and found out that people weren't watching the whole length anyway. So anyway, with that long drawn out explanation and everything, I want to do this, and let's go back to Pro Tools, y'all, and see what's going on. Okay, so let's go over here and see what we got going. Okay, now okay, we are talking about the messaging. Okay, so I muted the horns and things like that, but I'm going to put everybody else back in and point out just a couple of things on some of these things, the messaging that we're looking for, and I'll tell you how I went about processing to achieve the messaging. Okay, so like the messaging, let's take the horns and the synths is something, because we already talked about the guitars and stuff like that. Well, I'll come back and rewind back to them in a bit, but I want to talk about some stuff that I haven't talked about before. So let's let me see. Let's go here. And okay, so the messaging in those horns, as you can hear, the song is called "I Will Bless the Lord." So to me, the horns are putting the punctuation on there. "I will bless the Lord." It's like I'm feeling so good, and they're coming out and they're just making a point. It's, because now we're into the song started the way it did, and it already started good with a decent energy, but now we're into something that's kicking on a whole nother level. I swear it just gets me, and it just gets me every time I hear it, and I love the energy. But the horns are the punctuations that are in there. That's the messaging that just pointed in. Is like, I will bless the Lord, and all that's in me. It's not holding anything back. That's the messaging, just when that feeling comes through you, when you hear it and everything, that's when you're digging into the subliminal things that the instruments are doing. So when I go onto these horns, let me just move over here and show you a couple of things that are on here. Let me see, I don't think I need that anymore. Let's look at, like we got those hits, okay? The hits are over here, and let's do this real quick. Bring this up where you can see the hits. So we got the hits here, and we're gonna go up, and what I have on them, because they are hits, I have the Transient Designer to make them hit, and the other thing that I'm doing is sustaining them a little bit, because, they hit and they went away, but I wanted it to linger a little bit. I wanted that hit to just kind of linger out a little bit. And then after the hit, what I'm doing is controlling it a bit with this compressor limiter, so that, because it's playing at different levels and everything, some of the different things are coming through. So I'm just trying to control it a little bit so that it doesn't go crazy and overload me or anything. Nothing too crazy. One thing you'll notice is there's no EQ on those hits, and the reason why is because it's a sample and it sounds good already. It's already been processed. It's a hit, so that means it's been mastered and EQ'd, compressed, everything. So when I'm thinking about that, it's like, well, I don't really need to do anything unless it calls for it. Unless it really calls for it on the EQ side, because everything was done in there. It was a final master, and it's a sample of that. So you got to think about stuff like that. Whereas back in the day, before I had more experience, I would automatically start EQing and everything and trying to do something. But it's not necessary. It sounds good in its natural state. Like I said, the song will talk to you. The instruments will talk to you. We did the Michelangelo method, and just the statue is already there, like he said, for a sculptor. The song is already there, the structure, everything, the groove and all that. We just have to uncover it, listen and let it talk to us and say, Khaliq, here's what's already here, focus on that, okay? And I only put the Transient Designer on there because, like I said, the nature of it is it's hits, so I wanted it to hit a little bit more. But that's part of the messaging, that sound, that subliminal thing, that sound should hit you. So I made sure that it does what the messaging makes it feel like, okay? Then we've got this other one here that's a synth part. It's just it's just that normal sense. So all I did was put a compressor on it. Nothing special on that, just to kind of keep it in check. Now we've got these horns here and a lot of different things, and they get very dynamic. But I'm not doing a lot. But one thing that I did do on the horns is instead of putting a lot of stuff on that one channel, I put a plug-in that can do a lot of things on the one channel. So this is the Ultra channel, and by Eventide. And the Ultra channel, as you can see, I mean, it's got EQ in there, compression, a gate. It's got two compressors, and it's got a micro pitch shift. It's got delays and all that. So when I thought about what those horns needed, I said to get the sound that I wanted, I knew I'm gonna have to EQ them. I know I'm gonna have to compress them to, level them out a little bit, maybe limiting things like that. I knew that I wanted to expand them a little bit, make them a little bit wider and everything. And I knew I wanted to have some delays. So it meant I would have put a whole bunch of different plugins on. When I go to good old Eventide channel strip, they can get all that stuff basically in there, including the delay, the effect, which is really cool about that plugin. And I could have went to a bunch of different channel strips with what made me choose this. Like I said, it has two effects in there as well as just the EQ and dynamics processing. So thinking it out, the messaging that I want for that to come across, so that these horns are big, wide, forward in your face and driving, energetic and all that. This one EQ can do that, and you see I'm basically rolling off low end to keep it out the way, giving it a little bump where I took out some things because there's a couple of times where there's some low horn hits and everything, and they got a little bit too thin when I rolled out some stuff, so I wanted to make sure I put back some of that stuff. And then I'm just bumping up some of the upper mids a little bit, and then rolling down a little bit of the extreme high end. Not much, just a little bit, enough to take the edge off so that they don't get too edgy. Okay, so it's very important to understand what you're trying to do, okay? And that's what gets me to make sure that I have the messaging that I want to achieve with these different instruments and everything. We talked about the guitars and the bass here, for example. We got it. I'm just fixing the bass a little bit. Getting rid of a little bit of extra low end stuff, and then notching out a low part that was a problem frequency that I'm just putting in on the 1176, and then I'm also adding max bass by waves so that I can dial in some harmonics so that it'll work on smaller speakers and I can have it covered, and then finally just the pull tech. And adding back in some low end and taking out low end on it. You can add and take out at the same time on that to just kind of get it just right in the place that you want, and it'll still feel full and rich, So like I said, gospel music still has to feel big and full and everything on the low end. So anyway, I think that should be cool to give you an idea of what I mean by the messaging, the subliminal sonic messaging of the instruments. We'll go through it a deeper time and see how that changes for other things. When I bring up the other song, True Worship, at another point as well, I'll show you how that affects in a whole different way with a whole nother song, a whole nother feel, okay? So what I want to do now is tell you about the next video. I want you to come back. This will be the next and final video. And we want to make sure on this final thing that we tie it all together by coming back and maintaining a strong spiritual connection with the listener. That's what it's all about. When we're listening and making this music, it has to connect. It can't be all sterile. It can't be perfect. It has to connect. So I will point out the things that will help you come back and check yourself every time and be sure that you're not missing that very important element, because now you've got it feeling great and everything. Now you've got the message and all that in there. You want to make sure that you've done all this and it's still connecting and you're not missing something that just interrupts everybody's pattern and suddenly they just tune out and stop listening because one little thing that you missed because you didn't make sure that you maintained a spiritual connection. That word is very important, spiritual connection, okay? So anyway, this is Khaliq Glover, also known as Khaliq-O-Vision, and I will see you on the next video. Okay, catch you later, bye.